Okay everybody, into the vise I've got a number 10 Togen's curved nymph hook on here, 2x long. Now you can go with a straight shank hook and you can go down to number 12. I usually tie them in 12s and 10s. And you can change the color of the bead, which I'll discuss later. So the originator of this fly was John Kent, BC tyer, a local legend, at least to those of us in the fly tying community. And I've made one alteration to this fly, which I hope improves it, but you know, I hope John improves, and if not, I'd love to hear from him. Either way, whether he likes it or not, it'd be great to hear from John. So I'm bringing in my 70 denier olive tying thread here, and we'll get that anchored on there. And our first item that comes in is our tail, our woolly bugger olive marabou. That's our tail, and I like the woolly bugger marabou that they make. It's a really light, flowy type of marabou. If you don't have it, you don't need to fret. You can just put in regular marabou, but this stuff has a real flow to it, and it was the original material for this fly, so I'm going with it as well. I'm going to tie that in there with a loose loop, cinch down, another one, and then I'm going to wind back toward the bend of the hook, pulling slightly on the marabou towards myself to prevent it from rolling over to the other side, and keeping it on the top of the shank of the hook there. Now I'm going to do a wrap or two in underneath that tail, and what that does is it prevents the tail from hooking on the bend of the fly when you're casting it. It really does a good job of keeping that tail up on the upper side. So just to prevent that little thing from happening. If you've ever cast these and you haven't done that, you see that marabou tail cock under the bend of the hook there. Well, you can just pull it out, but it's a bit of a chore to do that every few casts, and it's much nicer if you don't have to. So I've got the marabou tail in there, which I will pinch to length later on. Now this is my one and only change to this fly. I'm coming in with extra small copper wire in the natural color, UTC wire. And this is my reinforcement to that palmered grizzly hackle that goes as the last material wrapped up the body of the hook. I find that palmered hackles, if they're not reinforced with either thread or wire, can be quite fragile given exposure to fish's teeth. And you really hope to expose them to fish's teeth. And those teeth are sharp. If you've ever had to stick your finger in a fish's mouth to pull out a hook, you can come away with some nasty scratches, and those teeth are sharp. They're meant to hold on to things. And I find that the main stem of the feather is quite fragile, and if fish's teeth get through that, the whole palmered hackle just explodes and your fly is done. So I'm coming in now with a burnt orange grizzly hackle, and what I've done is put a hackle pliers on the tip of it, and I'm moistening the fingers of my other hand and pulling the rest of those hackle fibers back to expose the tip and just sort of splay out those hackle fibers. Now that I've got that done, I'll remove the hackle pliers. I've got just the tip exposed there, and I'm going to do a loose loop and attach that there, and then wind up the thread up the hook to secure that feather in there. Now winding back again, now it's well secured. Now I like to come in using Arizona Semi-Seal in bronze peacock for the body of the hook, and I'm using some dubbing wax on my fingers and on the thread to help create a nice tight dubbing noodle. And you could use a dubbing loop if you like. You can splay the thread into the two fibers if you like, whichever method you want. It doesn't really matter. I believe John was of the same opinion. And here we go. We're just creating, and I like to create a fine noodle near the tail and then build it up toward the front of the hook, because I want the dubbing in this area here to be a little wider to jam that bead up against the eye of the hook. So we're just starting slender there and working our way forward. Bumping the camera there, excuse that. And as I need more dubbing, I just add another pinch to it as I work my way forward. We'll just get that brushed in there, force down, add some more. semi-seal dubbing. I like the sparkle in the Arizona semi-seal. It adds a little bit of attractant in there, simulates some gases that might be on a leech or whatever the fish are taking this as. And here we go, we're coming up in behind that bead now, and I just want to make sure I have enough of that dubbing noodle to jam it up and make a thick shoulder there behind the bead. And you should see a bit of a taper here. There we go, just a final little touch here to add to it. And there we go, we've got that bead nicely secured in behind the eye and a nice taper to that body, as you can see there. Now it's time to come forward with our palmered grizzly hackle. And if you're looking from the front of the hook, I'm going clockwise or away from myself on the top of the hook. And I will just palmer that grizzly hackle forward there in about, I don't know, 6 or 7 spirals. 4, 5, 6, 7. And the object of going with the tip first is that you've got the shorter hackles like this toward the tail of the hook and the longer ones toward the front. And tie it off here, I'm just winding the hackle around the thread once and the thread over the hook once. And I do that like 3 or 4 times. And I secure my hackle in there. Now I can cut that tag end out. We've got that secured in there, and I'm just going to moisten my fingers in my left hand and pull those hackle fibers back and give it another wind or 2. I just want to get that thread out of the way, and I think a little stub there that I'd like to trim off just for my sake of tidiness. Now I find my copper wire, and now with the copper wire, again looking at the front of the hook, I'm going counterclockwise, opposite to the grizzly hackle turns. And this is the only change I've made to John's fly, just to reinforce that grizzly hackle. And the copper wire is in keeping, I think, with the color, overall color pattern of the fly. It sort of blends in with that hot orange or that burnt orange. And just winding it and dancing it through there, you will catch the occasional fiber. You're trying to prevent catching most of them. And this really makes the fly, I find, last a lot longer. And so I hope John forgives me. If you're watching this, John, and you see how I'm butchering your fly, well, maybe you can let me know and give me some more pointers. So here we go, we're just getting it up, and I'm being careful here, taking my time and brushing out the fibers as I go while I dance that copper wire through those hackle fibers. And I do believe I'm not catching the majority of them there. There are a few caught, but I'm doing a pretty good job, I think. And we'll just give it one more half turn here and get it up behind the bead. Now I'm going to come in behind the bead here with the thread over that, capturing that wire. And again, moisten my fingers, pull those hackle fibers back, pull the wire forward, a few wraps behind, one in front, and I'm going to take my dedicated scissors. Instead of helicoptering it, I'm just going to cut it out. And I caught a few fibers there. Now a touch of Sally Hansen's on the thread to help glue that head together. Make sure it's well secured in there, it's not going to unravel on me. And a whip finish to complete the fly. So there you have John Kent's Pumpkinhead 2.0. My little adjustment to his original pattern. I hope it's not considered too unorthodox to put out there. If you enjoyed that, what I'm going to do here too first is just pinch that tail to length. I'm going to just pinch off a little to give it about the same length as the hook. And that's much better result than trying to cut it with scissors. There you go, John Kent's Pumpkinhead, tied in number 10. You can tie it in 12s. Some lakes at some times I've heard that the hot orange bead is the best, and that's what I've had most universal luck with, cutthroat and rainbow. But at certain times and places I've heard that red bead will do better. So consider that in your pattern as well. If you enjoyed that fly, please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. It's free and it really helps me and my videos come up in the algorithm. Thanks for watching. Take care out in the water.